Good afternoon. I'm plenty loud enough. I may not need this, but I'm going to use it anyway. So we're going to talk about in situ burn we did on Delta National Wildlife Refuge, and then we tied in a wetland vegetation monitoring component to that. So to give you an idea where the spill site is, which one's the pointer? We don't know. Anyway,
Top one?
little side map here will show you we're about due south of where we're sitting today. So spill site is out here off of Octave Pass on the refuge.
Oh, Larsa.
That's a little better map of the refuge boundary. Spill actually fell right into in the middle of our closed waterfowl area, kind of sanctuary area. This is Octave Pass here, if you're familiar. All right, so that's spill location within Delta. So the initial spill, we got a call on a Wednesday. Spill was discovered by the responsible party. They have a weekly aerial flight, goes up, flies their fields. Saw some sheen, some dark oil in the marsh. Notified us. We tried to mobilize that Wednesday, couldn't get across the river in airboats. The weather was too bad. Actually got out there on a Thursday morning. Priorities for cleanup were set up like your normal spill. So you want to secure the source, build a containment strategy, and then start looking at some potential mechanical recovery. And then we started ongoing assessment of the impacted areas. This is our source. We had a 8-inch bulk line that the operator didn't even realize was there. Very old field. Some of this stuff was put in the 40s, 50s. Just had some remnant oil in that line. Ruptured. Approximately 10 acres were oiled, with about 3 of that being heavy oil. We approximated about 100 barrels. This is a shot probably 2 days after we got on scene. There's your source. Got boom set out around the perimeter. There's a lot of oil in here. It's just hard to tell because it got trapped up in the rosocane. This is pretty much almost a solid rosocane Phragmites marsh in here. So the in situ burn. This is how this thing kind of manifested itself. We had some initial discussions with the responsible party was Texas Petroleum Investment Company. We're out on site eating bologna sandwiches or whatever you eat the first, second day of a spill. And somebody brought up, why don't we try and burn it? We all laughed a little bit. And then after lunch, we had a serious discussion about actually seeing if we could burn it. We conducted a test burn with a sample of oil. We did that off refuge. James, just so we're clear on that. It was successful, so we started the in situ burn application process. Sector NOLA has a very well done ACP and Appendix C. You can find that ISB application and checklist. So you're looking at feasibility analysis, incident and spill data, weather and environmental conditions, and then your proposed burn plan. So we all had a big laugh. We knew we were going to have to go through RRT, and it was like Friday afternoon when we did the test burn. We were like, there's no way, man. We're not pulling this off anytime before next Friday. But we were surprised. So we figured out the oil would burn. Then we started looking at, James and I started consulting on, damage to sensitive coastal ecosystems. We're the landowner. We're responsible for that piece of property. Then we're looking at mitigating potential impacts to wildlife. Then you kind of get into that NEBA. I don't think they call it NEBA anymore. Maybe they call it SEMA. But you're looking at trade-offs. As wildlife managers, land managers, we have to figure out what's the least damaging path to get rid of this oil, get it off of our landscape. And then, of course, we'd have public and media interest if we started burning stuff. There's no doubt about that. And then the RRT consultation and eventually needed concurrence. Prepared for the burn. Sector New Orleans set up a unified command So the critical role for the environmental unit within that was an in-situ burn operation checklist and then the site safety plan development. Forefront actually served as the kind of spill manager for TPIC. Did a good job building up the burn plan for approval. Notified RRT of our plans. From a Fish and Wildlife Service perspective, we burn stuff all the time. We've got people that are full-time fire folks, so we brought in our fire folks to help them develop this plan and a prescription. Biologists and managers that worked for us were coordinated the response and then served as our habitat experts. As land managers, like I just spoke about, our decisions are best based off, trade-offs. What's the best possible outcome? We held an RRT call actually from the field, remote location, got really good feedback. We expressed our situation. This doesn't work in every case, but we had the perfect situation, perfect opportunity. We had a freshwater to intermediate marsh, surrounded on two sides by a spoil bank, surrounded on the other two sides by bodies of water. Had favorable weather and winds for the next few days, and then we're in a very remote location. Nearest populated town is Pilot Town, and post-Katrina there's probably 6 residents in Pilot Town. 6 everyday residents. So anyway, conducting the burn. We got UC approval of the burn and the site safety plans. Coast Guard was very hesitant to agree to this. They made me say 6 to 12 times that we were cool with it. So I think that was right after Gaudier. Who was there? Captain?
Gaudier?
After Gaudier.
Oh, Shiflin.
Shiflin.
Yeah, Shiflin.
He made me say on the phone several times that we were good with this.
He's a lawyer.
Well, he's a good one. So he was free and clear. Anyway, again, like we burn all the time. So our folks were excited about it. On-site response teams, we had ignition control and suppression. That was T&T Marine out of Galveston. That was hired by the RP. We had air monitoring. Gulf Strike team came in, handled our air monitoring stuff. We had lookouts. We had security and safety by our law enforcement guys. We had helicopter support. We actually had a NOAA SSC Adam in the helicopter for it. So we were burning by Tuesday. Got on site Thursday. Burning by Tuesday is pretty impressive, honestly. For us, anyway, I thought it was. We had no clue how much of this stuff was going to burn. We had no idea how long it had been there. We just knew that it was covered by roseau-cane. It was somewhat dormant, I guess. There was no wave action, very little tide action affecting it. So the lighter end stayed, enough to burn some up. So here's just a few aerial shots. That's your response boats out in Octave Pass. This is one of our ignition crews here on the airboat. So it was licking pretty good. Burned real quick first day, and I'll show you another shot in a second where we actually went in the second day and did some spot fires. So our staff, our fire crew was instrumental in getting the prescription and the burn plan completed. They worked hand in hand with the responsible party to get a plan through and approved by RRT and the Unified Command. So this will give you an aerial shot. So all this stuff in black is the burn on the first day. That was the third. And then the fourth, that was the little spot fires I was telling about. We went out the next morning and did some ignition stuff, and actually were able to burn a lot more. So here's kind of a side-by-side here, pre-burn, post-burn. So that's, we had a good burn on probably 3 to 4 acres, and we figure that was 85 to 90% of the oil that we had on the ground or in the water. So pretty successful. Here's your reference point. This is just a bigger shot of what I just showed you. So here's your source, and there's your source. So we got a little spot burn here, and then this is the bulk of our burned area. After following the burn, we still had some residual stuff. Oil thickness, it wasn't enough to carry a fire, so we went back to you know, mechanical cleanup. Did a lot of, like Jeff was talking about, a lot of low pressure, high volume flushing to these areas where we could collect oil and try to minimize foot traffic in that area. So post-burn, we were lucky enough that we had a responsible party that was willing to pony up a bunch of money to do a monitoring study. RPI was involved, so we did immediate site assessment. Like as soon as it finished smoldering, we had an airboat in. We were gathering information. Sampling, testing, and disposal of the burn residue, and then, as I just mentioned, we transitioned to mechanical. So here's the study team: NOAA, DEQ, DOZAT, who just left. Jeff was on that team. The service, TPIC, RPI, and then we had some chemistry work done by LSU. So the study's design, I'm going to try and run through this fairly quickly. So we looked at 3 oiling and treatment classes: heavily oiled and burned, heavily oiled, not burned, and then our reference. We had 5 replicate stations in each treatment class. We looked at sediment and vegetation. We did that 4 periods. So we did June 14, September 14, 15, and 16. We also looked at snail abundance in these plots, just as kind of a biomarker. Quick slide of the design study. Here's your burned area. Here's your not burned but oiled area, and then there's your reference. So a few pictures here. This is June 14, right after the burn. So this is what we're looking at. Another component I didn't mention, where it was the kind of the perfect scenario, was we had good water depth, where we figured if we burned, we weren't going to get into the rhizomes. All the stars kind of aligned for us. You know, it was just a perfect opportunity to do it. So as you can see, I don't know if you know the history of roseoak cane, but our fire people have tried to burn roseoak cane for years. It does not carry a fire well by itself. You put a lot of oil under it, it will carry a fire. There's no doubt. So write that down, James. That's our ticket. So here we jump to September. So this is June, and this shot right here was the following morning after our burn. I mean, you've got veg shooting up that quick. So a lot of this stuff was sitting under the roseoak cane. The seed source was there. It was just waiting for its time. And we had really good reaction to the fire. So this is 3 months later, a little over 2 months later. You've got roseoak cane coming back pretty strong. We've got some good emergent plants, native emergent plants coming back strong. This is their quads here. So we've got some good stuff coming back in. We had bull tongue coming back in. We had Delta duck potato. All of this stuff is good wildlife food, and as wildlife folks and land managers, that's good for us. That's kind of that setback succession phase we put it through. This is a year later, September 15th. So you look at the difference. I mean, we've got a reference here on the next slide too. So we've got some really good veg coming back in. That's September 15th. So I mean, you've got even some SAVs coming back in under this stuff. You've got emergents coming back in, good wildlife food. Then there's September 16th. So here's that reference again. That's your source hole that's just about closed itself back up. Now that dig was like 8 feet deep where it blew out. So what's not closing in is 8 foot deep, but everything around the edges is closing back in. And then there's your quadrats from 16. So the conclusions: the burn removed much of the gross oiling and reduced residual oiling on the marsh vegetation. Though the vegetation was affected, it appears to be recovering rapidly, and still has. We still get aerial shots every once in a while from the RP when they're out doing their normal flying around. I'll show a couple of those at the end. The best for us as wildlife people, we observed differences in plant species composition, and it basically did setback succession. What happened historically, right, through marsh fire or whatever, it gets rid of all the tall stuff. Seed source is there. We've got good wildlife food coming in. We suspect the Phragmites will come back eventually, probably take that area over, with the caveat that we've got an invasive species now that is a rososcale that's eating Phragmites. That's a different seminar and a different talk, different problem. And then we also looked at the snail. So year one, or right after the burn, we had definitely a decrease in the burn area. We were looking at the olive nearite. So had a decrease, but by year 16, populations were back to, you know, what their baseline was in the control area. Key takeaways: very good unified command coordination, support and expertise from our fire folks, RRT consultation and concurrence very quickly, I might add, worked out real well. Mike Sam, Steve Spencer, tip the hat to them because they did a fantastic job. And then we had emphasis on safety and work assignments. Gulf Strike Team was instrumental in helping us build up some of those safety plans too. Very good communications. I will say this, right before we started the burn, we ended up on a VHF channel and it turned out to be the Vietnamese shrimper channel. So we had to change channels so we didn't cross wires. But was this operation a success? Absolutely. So for us, ideal situation, we literally sped the cleanup process up by months. We had the head foreman for the Osro told us that he would have been out there another 6 to 8 months with his crew cleaning this stuff up. So we sped that up by several months, getting them out of the refuge and letting the habitat kind of repair itself. Again, I stated this before, we're not foreign to burning on refuges. We've actually burned oil on refuges before. Back in the early 2000s, we burned over at Sabine, so it's not foreign to us. Then the regrowth of the habitat was tremendous. Talked about setback succession, great wildlife value. Outcome couldn't have been better from our perspective. You know, we picked what we felt was the least damaging method to remove the oil, and it worked out great for us. So here's a couple quick aerial shots. This is October 14. And then we're looking at February 16. You can see it's starting to fill back in, that area. And then this is, what, July 16. So, I mean, you've got almost total green up. Some of this darker green stuff is highest that's moved in. But anyway, pretty good results 2 years out. So I think the key to the success here, not only of the burn, but the monitoring, was we had a willing, responsible party that was willing to pony up, and they understood what our endpoints needed to be, and they were willing to fulfill those. And then the incident command team did real well. I had some foresight in not immediately shucking the idea of burning on a national wildlife refuge.